everybody. Happy Thursday. It is 9:30. It is Cotton Cuts time. I see folks checking in. So Terry, this is a live show today. It's real, like no Dominics and no pre-recorded. So I am so excited about today's show. Today we're talking about scraps, which is the thing that all the quilters have and continue to multiply, but yet we can't always figure out what to do with. And so I am so excited to be talking about scraps today and ways in which we can convert the scraps that we have into beautiful quilts. All right. It appears as though Janet Elliott is saying she's unhappy that she has won her color challenge, Paula. All right. Fantastic. All right. Good morning, Karen Essentials on Instagram. Good morning. All right. So guys, the heat is finally broken here in St. Louis. I'm kind of excited about it. It has been hot and humid and gross. And, you go outside and you feel like you're swimming. I know those of you that live in the Southeast know what I'm talking about. You kind of swim each morning. I am thankful that it felt cool. Last night we had soccer practice and it was actually pleasant. The boys were still sweating, but it was super pleasant last night. So this is my first show without Dominic. I kind of feel like we got to have that honorary cutout. Paula, we got to get on that. We got to get the Dominic cutout here. All right, we're going to start, as we do every show, with 2 questions that have been submitted by you guys. Go to cottoncuts.com/live to submit your question. It is here on the table. I have gadgets today, and so I'm hoping these have to do with the questions. Otherwise, it's just kind of odd. All right, let's jump into this. Good morning, Terry. All right, let's see here. So Terry says she has hurricane winds. Yes, hurricane, I believe it is Aaron, is making landfall. So Terry, please be safe. All right, so our first question comes to us from Janet Miller in Portland, Oregon. Thanks for your question, Janet. Janet asks, I've been quilting for about 2 years now, and I keep hearing people talk about binding clips. We got those, versus pins. What's the difference, and do I really need to invest in clips, or are pins just fine for binding? Okay. So I think that's why I have these props here. So these are, for those of you that have not used them before, these are called binding clips. And so there was a time about, 5-6 years ago when these were all the rage, and they were all made by Clover and they were super expensive. And now a lot of companies have these. And so they're binding clips. And so they're intentionally designed to be used when you are binding your quilt. So you've stitched it on one side and you're wrapping it around to the other side. The idea was you use these lovely little rounded clips to hold your binding in place so you could either hand sew it or machine sew the second piece of your binding. And these were all the rage because the flat on one side is great if it's on the bottom of your quilt and you're putting it through the machine, or if it's domed because you want to get that width and that thickness that comes with your binding. So that's what all of these guys were used for. Now, before then, I think we used binder clips. I used to use little claw hair ties that I had to kind of hold them over. Since then, we've evolved into glue. A lot of people use school glue to hold those in place so they can stitch over their binding. But I think to Janet's questions, a lot of people have used straight pins. And if you guys have used straight pins on binding, more power to you. I do feel sorry for your fingers and the Band-Aids that you probably had to wear, but they worked, right? It all got the job done. We as quilters are pretty crafty people. We're going to figure it out and make sure it gets done. Now, since then, these clips have been used for a lot of other things, more than just binding. A lot of times these are used for organization. So for example, if you're using a Mystery 5-0 quilt and we're telling you to pair and put things together, you can use these clips for organization. I've definitely been known to do that. I use them to clip paper onto parts so I know what the part is, what the size is, what the fabric is. These little clips are quite little handy to have in the craft room. And I have bought a ton of them in bulk on Amazon. They're way more affordable now than they once were when they first came out. And so Janet's saying, so that's what a binding clip is versus a pin. And I would say, pins are just fine for binding if that's your jam. Otherwise, you might have something around the house that you can use in lieu of these guys. I know binder clips, the office supply things will work here as well. I love them. I appreciate them. And I found more use past binding for them. And I'm seeing lots of comments here that, save the pins for some curves. You can save the pins for your piecing as well. and clip pattern pieces when you store it, when Terry sews them. So those are all ideas on how you can expand the utility of these. So it's not just used for binding your quilt, but really the thing that distinguishes them and makes them different is I'm going to see if I can get the camera to focus on here, the flat on the bottom and the rounded on the top. And so that's really kind of what makes them different. Now they've come in narrow versions. They come lots of different derivations now, but this is the OG version. Janice says the clips are also great for bag making, sewing with cork or waxed canvas. Jana, if you were sewing with those substrates, good for you. And she said her mom used to use clothespins before she got her pack. That is an absolute valid way. I remember we used to use clothespins for all sorts of sewing and clothes making when we were younger. Whenever we needed to hem something, it was always a clothespin that went in. Whenever there was elastic in a waistband, a clothespin went in as well. So I think that this is kind of the hybrid between the pin and the clothespin. All right. Terry says she's used them for chip clips. It's kind of an expensive chip clip, but more power to you. If you're extending the life, extending the utility. And I think for me that if I did that, anytime I was quilting, I would have to go and like scrounge the junk drawer in the kitchen and scoop them up and find them. All right. Let's see here. All right, Janet, thank you so much for your question. I hope that was helpful to you. There's tons of people I know that are going to watch this video and post other comments on things they've used them for, but they're more than just for binding, and a lot of people have a lot of great ideas. All right, our second question comes to us from Michael Rodriguez in Austin, Texas. Thank you for your question, Michael. Michael writes, my local quilt shop is closing next month and I'm heartbroken. Oh dear. I've built relationships there, taken classes, and it's been my go-to place for fabric and advice. How do you find a new quilt shop community when you're starting over? Okay, so Michael, wow. So Michael is not alone in his share here. This I know for sure. And I know many of you that are watching this have had a similar experience to Michael. And so we have a lot of quilt shop owners that are shutting down their stores for multiple reasons. The most popular is that they've been quilt shop owners for 20 or 30 years and they're going to retire, right? So that is a very common reason for a quilt shop to close down. There's also prices. There's also the cost of goods. There's also move people online. There's lots of reasons why this is happening. This is not unique to just Austin. And so I would ask for you guys, how have you found a new local quilt shop when your favorite shop has closed down? This has happened for me before. Dominic, who we all know and love, he's normally here with me. When he was just 6 weeks old, I took him on a shop hop here in St. Louis. And so I loaded him up in his car seat and away we go. And I know it was a story that was meant to be told. This kid has been quilting since he was 6 weeks old. And there were 13 local quilt shops in St. Louis at the time. And I found my favorite and I loved it. And it was not close to my house. I had to drive past other quilt shops to get to it. And I loved it. And I would sign up for classes. And anytime they would have a sale or a special or something new, I would schlep the kids over there and we would go check it out. And they went out of business. And I feel that in my core that, you feel like you lose a friend when that happens because you know the employees, the owner, a lot of the things that happen. And so, Michael, what I would suggest, there's a couple different routes here. So consider doing another shop hop in your area, right? Things change over time. And there might be new quilt shop that's open that you might be able to pop into and introduce yourself and kind of get their class list and get a feel for their staff. There might be an opportunity for you to discover a shop that you didn't like the first time you went into and had a bad experience, but when you go back in this time, you might have a more positive experience. And I think, Michael, there's also a way to build a quilting community that's not necessarily built around a shop, but more around a guild. And so I'm sure Austin has like tons and tons of quilt guilds. And quilt guilds, we talked about this before, can range from 150, 200 members down to just 10 people that gather at a rec center. And so, Michael, there's a lot of ways to creatively find in-person quilting communities where you are when the quilt shop closes. Now, with all of that said, there is definitely growing online quilt communities as well. And so Terry talks about she has to shop online only. So there's the shopping online element, but then there's also the community that you can build online. And a lot of classes are being delivered digitally or in Zoom fashion. And so you don't necessarily have to go in for a class. I love taking in-person classes. I like being able to ask questions. I like being able to have the instructor come over and help me. I love that when we were in New Orleans, Giuseppe was able to actually sit with students and help them with the layout and, have a design wheel up and move things around. All of those things you get when you're able to take classes in person. Now, I guarantee you, Michael, in a city like Austin, there has to be a local community college that has quilting classes. That is going to be a thing. That is going to be a place. But I do agree that there is some need for that in-person classes. That's part of the reason why we started retreats, is we want to make sure that there's opportunities for people to meet in person, for opportunities to engage with instructors in person. For many of us, we don't have those quilt shops. Like Terry says, she has no local quilt shops. And so this would be a good opportunity for her to go to a city that has a lot of quilt shops, that has instruction, that has community. So Michael, this is unfortunately a problem that I don't necessarily know is going away for a while, but it is something that there are some viable solutions. And so I would encourage you to, even just go to Google Maps and type in quilt shop and see what pops up. Anytime I go to a new city, that's what I do, is I go to Google Maps, look for quilt shop, and see what pops up. And it doesn't all have to be in a day. You don't have to schlep your kid in the car seat and do 13 shops in a day. But you can definitely, see a couple shops, maybe do one shop a weekend and just kind of figure out what the feel is. And having just done the quilt shop hop in Louisiana, we did have to drive about an hour and 45 minutes for some shops. But each shop had its own vibe and its own feel. And you'll know when you walk in if the fabric sings to you, if the employees sing to you, if the projects sing to you. And maybe you'll be lucky and you'll find two. And then that'll be a true gift. All right. Let's see here. Deb Jean is saying she has two in her area, but one is her favorite. She has two quilts there waiting to be long-armed. So Terry's saying if they're closing, ask them if they know where the next shop is. I'm sure at this point they wouldn't mind sharing that info. Yes. Sometimes quilt shop owners can be a little kind of protective of their customers and don't necessarily want to share that information. But at this point, they would definitely be willing to do that. That's a fantastic idea, Terry. Okay. Thank you, Janet. Thank you, Michael, for those questions. Don't forget, if you have a question you want to leave, it's going to be here on my desk and I might have props when you ask this question. Go to cottoncuts.com/live to submit your question for our next show. If something pops up in the course of our conversation, I would love to help clarify. This is all good stuff. And thank you guys for the super timely questions too as well. All right. So what is going on in the shop this week? So I swear to God, my team sleeps. As I go through this list, I'm thinking, how are we getting all this done? But we are absolutely crushing so many things. So we shipped our Cuddle books. We shipped our Modern Maker. We shipped our Classic. We shipped all the things out the door that you guys have been ordered and are loving and are enjoying. We're also doing a ridiculous amount of die cutting. So Clue 2 for Under the Sea is here. If you guys can believe it, like Clue 2 is going to ship, I believe, next Friday. It is all die cut. The team is kitting it. We are getting it ready to go. If you are an Under the Sea detective, please make sure you're looking for your package and in your evidence locker, because we're adding two things for our Clue 2. So the first is we're going to add those section labels. So it's a single 8.5 by 11 piece of paper that has section 1A, section 1B, and the right quantities. So you can cut them out and we're going to use our clover clips. And so that way you can actually clip them to your clues and know which one is which. You can also pin it too. That's a fantastic use for pins as well. We're also going to be playing our new game. So we didn't want to start it with Clue 1. We're going to start it with Clue 2. And the people I've been describing this to are super excited about the new game that we're going to play for Under the Sea. So each month you're going to get an insert either in the evidence locker or in your actual package, and it's going to ask you to do something and submit online. And just like before, we're going to pick people to get gift certificates. And if you participate all the months, you'll be entered to win something fantastic. And so, stay tuned to that. That's going to be coming out with your clue next week. So Terry Amson is saying she hasn't received her first clue for Under the Sea. So Terry, if that's happened to you, simply send a note to help@cottoncuts.com. We're actually nearing the end of all the things. So if you are ordering now, we're starting to build those because our team is getting caught up. So Terry, if you haven't received it, definitely reach out. We have tracking on all the Clue 1s. We'll be able to see where it is in the system and get you back on track. That applies for a lot of those Under the Sea questions. Carrie is awesome, and she's working every day to get everything caught up. So Terry, if you have not heard from her, she is probably, her kids started school this week. So she might be in and out, might be hearing back from her at odd hours, but I guarantee you, Terry, we will get you sorted. We'll get it right. All right. This is also one of my favorite times of the year because we start to get, the Under the Sea get markers. Michelle, yes. So that's the section labels I was talking about, section 1A, section 1B. So that's going to come out next week. Let's see here. So this is also one of my favorite times of the year because we start to get ahead on our mystery that's almost done. So for Flyaway, for example, the team is currently cutting pieces for clues 8 and 9. all the extra borders and all the Clue 10 parts and pieces are off the bolt. So our team is getting ahead. I know for you guys, you just got 7, you're stitching up Clue 7, but our team is getting ahead. It is awesome. It is exciting. I love getting that done. Because then we can kind of see what the end of Flyaway looks like, and we can start seeing those reveals, which is always one of my favorite days of the year. It's like Christmas and Easter. A PMQ reveal day is fun, and it is awesome. All right. We're also working on our Sonoma retreat. So if you guys can believe it, less than 2 weeks we'll be in Sonoma. We're probably going to do this live show from the Sonoma retreat in 2 weeks. And that lovely group is going to be sewing a new puzzle mystery quilt design. There are 5 different colorways. Our team is die cutting now. We are getting all set up. We are getting organized. We actually have to, since this one is so far away from St. Louis, we are shipping all of the goods for the retreat on freight. And so we have giant boxes around the shop that we are putting all the goods to make sure that all of our retreat attendees have the best time possible. So all of that's happening this week because it's going to take a week for all those freights, the pallets to get there. That's the word I'm searching for. Made by Misty, go ahead and send a note to help to see if we can get any oops kits for you. All right. Also, this week we had our blowout sale going on. So we partnered with Fab Shop Hop. This is a company we've been working with for, 5 or 6 years now. We've had the bunny each month on our website, and you hop around and you get prizes and gift certificates and all sorts of fun things. So we partnered with them for a blowout sale. And so you guys have been fantastically supportive of that. Thank you guys so much. We also added some new things to the shop yesterday. I kind of dropped in some surprises and some Easter eggs. So we have the Winding Ways kits, the pre-cut kits with the curves. We talked about curves I think 2 weeks ago on how to sew curves. Those pre-cut kits are now in the shop with the templates and the patterns to get you guys off and sewing. We also have just a few, I think maybe 2 left, retreats in the boxes. If you liked the quilt that we made in New Orleans and you would like to make your own, those are on the website now. We also have these lovely canvas totes. I saw when we posted the swag bag that you guys were all in love with the Cotton Cuts tote. So these now are on the website too if you want to get your own. Paul is a big fan because it has a pocket with a zipper on the inside, so that way you can put your keys in here and not get lost into the bottom of the bag. Janice said she found us through Fab Shop Hop. Yes, that is a fantastic organization, you guys. We also have Giuseppe's favorite things. And so this little bag of goodies, we asked Giuseppe Robato, Juicy Juice, what his top favorite notions were. He gave us a list. And so we created little bags of goodness for him. So inside you'll find probably, I think, 10, 11 items that Giuseppe loves. And so those are on the website now. All of these things are going on. Let's see here. Let's talk about Mystery 5.0. So Mystery 5.0, Clue 2 dropped, or Clue 3, excuse me. Clue 3 dropped yesterday. You guys, this fast pace, it is going by at a blistering pace. For those of us that are seasoned PMQ detectives, where we have a clue and then a month, a clue and then a month, a clue in a week is bonkers fast. This quilt is going to be done before you know it. And so I understand that Clue 3, I've sewn it myself. It's a little tricky. It is not like Clue 2. Pay attention to your triangles and your half square triangles and make sure they go the correct direction. If you're participating in that, that's my hint that I can give you, is make sure your triangles are going in the correct direction for that. We've been watching you guys online as we're, making sure you guys are sewing everything. And we noticed that there were some people getting stuck on separating their lights and their darks. And we get that. We've asked several folks, hey, help us understand how we can make this easier for you. And so what we came up with is a Rosa Recommends. And so this is a new insert. We have it. We're going to try and do it for each clue where it requires some of the choosing your own adventure. Because we realize that some people are creators in the quilting space. And you see like sort light versus dark, and you are jumping in with 2 feet and you're like, I got it. And then there's other people that want us to tell them these are the lights and these are the darks. And so what we want to do is be able to help both groups of people. We want to help the creators and we want to help the makers. And so we are going to be providing some guidance as to what we think the lights and the darks are. Now, we're not the only answer here. We're just providing you guidance so that way you don't get stuck, because we want you to sew. We want you to finish these quilts because they are beautiful, they are amazing, and you are going to love them. And if you've chosen a different path, it is going to still be amazing. We just want to help those folks that are getting a little stuck Given the pace of it, we want to make sure everyone stays together. Let's see here. Oh, welcome, Victoria. Nice think of you. Thanks for joining us. All right. And hello, Ellen Ford from Rhode Island. Ellen, it's probably lovely right now in Rhode Island as opposed to St. Louis, which has been a steam bath for a week and is finally good here. Okay, also, don't forget to join us for our Saturday social as well. So we will be sewing Clue 3 as a group in our Facebook group for Mystery 5.0. And I want to show everyone, I teased this in the group yesterday about how this little gizmo is game-changing as I am stitching my Mystery 5.0. So this is a product. It is by Gypsy Quilter. And it is a wool-covered presser bar. So you can see the wool mat goes on the outside of the wood. It also doubles as a clapper. So that's kind of this other piece here. A clapper, for those folks that don't know, is a piece of wood that you put on your fabric after you press it that allows it to hold the shape. So then that way you can let it cool. The wood and the wool will absorb that heat and it'll hold a better press than if you just press it and then lift up your iron. Let's see here. Don't forget thumbs. Oh yeah, don't forget to give thumbs up to the show, gang. So this guy, so I wanted to show you guys why this is a game changer for me in the Mystery 5.0. So Mystery 5.0 has a lot of open pressed seams. And so that is challenging for a quilter like me. I am used to like pressing, dark, press in the direction of the arrow. I am in the press category of life. And so whenever I see a seam pressed open, I hitch a breath a little bit because that is a lot of work. And I've done it before. I made an entire project of trapezoids where I pressed every seam open. And yes, it laid really, really flat and it was awesome. And those seams looked beautiful and they, quilted like a dream. But it takes a lot more time and effort. And so when I was doing some research online, this is what quilters do, right? How do I make this faster, right? This is a process that it goes slow for me. So I did a bunch of research and that's where I came across this guy. And so the way I know, Michelle Showalter, I am not a fan of the open seam, but let me show you. So with this guy right here and this shape, so I know this is a shape you guys will recognize in the Mystery 5.0. It's that half square triangle with the background and a print. So what you do is you actually lay it on top of the presser bar. I'm going to push it down so you can see it here. And you can line up, and I've done roughly 200 of these by now. You can line up 3 at a time on this presser bar. And so what you do is you put the right sides towards the wool, and you're basically creating the shape that you want on the front of your part. And then you can run your iron right down this seam. All you have to do is just gently pop open the front side, and then your iron takes care of the rest. And so you can iron right on the top of this, and bam, before you know it, you have 3 half square triangles with the seams pressed open, and it works. And my favorite part about it is because it's wool, it actually sticks to your fabric. So this stuff kind of stays there. It stays in place. I take this with my little teeny tiny iron and I'm able to sit in front of the television at night, and I don't have to have a big pressing mat, and I'm not open them up and using a finger press or using a roller press to press them open. This actually, this is a breeze. I just pop it open a little bit. You guys can see I just popped it open just a teeny tiny little bit here, and that takes care of it. So I can tell you for this Mystery 5.0 design, all those half square triangles, all those square intersections, there's a lot that are pressed open. And even in the final instructions, there are still some seams that are pressed open because of the choose your own nature element of it. There's not a lot of instructions about nesting seams here, but I would recommend that when they say press it open, you got to suck it up and press it open if it's important to you. Yes, ma'am. Sorry. Oh yeah. So Paula's also clarifying, right? So here's the deal, right? So you do this, and then once you get your seam open, Paula's confirming that you can put it down on the table and the clapper goes on top of it, and that's going to press and open it. I haven't been doing that because, we have to do like a couple hundred of these, and I'm finding that it's actually holding the press, just pulling it right off the roller. So I know I talked about that. I talked about that last week for the Mystery 5.0. I wanted to show you guys because I was trying to explain it to Paula, and she's like, I need to see it. I need to see it. So I wanted to show you guys why it is helpful for me. And I also want to clarify, I can see those gizmos being sold out fast. So yes, Jana, if they are sold out, I think like Checker has like 3,000 in stock. So if we need to get more, we definitely can. But it's one of those, I needed to demonstrate it for you guys. And I am like you, I don't have all the answers, guys. And when I encounter something like this, where I'm looking at, so many hundreds of parts where I have to press the seams open, I go to, just like you guys, search the internet, and I find something, and I want to be able to share that with you. But I am in the same boat. I don't have all the answers. I've been doing this for 30 30 years and I'm still learning new things. All right. Let's see here. Oh, and also on Mystery 50. So the next design is coming in October, if you guys can believe it. We have a reveal coming up in, I think, 2 weeks here. And then we have our next mystery, Island Hopping, which will start in October. That one's going to be holiday themed and it's going to be different shapes. It's a totally different design. It'll be a different experience. And I like that about the Mystery 50 is, we're doing things that are the same but different. And so I like that we're adding this to the Cotton Cuts family. Oh, and also Rose's Holiday Your Way is coming, if you guys can believe that. It's coming in a couple of weeks, but it's coming really fast. And so let's see here. So let's see. Ellen says people that use those love them. Yes, it's one of these, like, I can imagine I'd have probably seen this somewhere and it had probably been on a shelf and I would have forgotten about it. But now I feel like this is probably going to be a staple at my sewing machine. All right. Are we ready to talk about scraps? Let's see here. How many quilts have I made in 30 years? An estimate. Oh gosh. So in the 30 years, finished quilts. So Michelle, I'm going to take your question to the finished quilt extreme, not just quilt tops, because I have quilt tops. I would say in 30 years, I've probably made 40 to 50 quilts. And those range in size from, it's like small baby quilts made with charm packs all the way up to, and I think I've made probably 5 or 6 king queen size quilts in that time. I'm very good at quilt tops. The finishing bit, I actually have to sit and piece together the backings and then give them to a long armor. But I would say, 40 to 50 quilts in that time is probably fair. Now, when it comes to in-process projects, I don't know what that number is. And I feel like asking me to disclose my unfinished projects is like asking weight or age. I feel like that's one of those things quilters hold tight to their chest. But yes, okay, that's my answer, Michelle. All right, let's talk about scraps. So this topic was inspired because Dawn, an amazing quilter on my team here, has been using her scraps and making incredibly quick quilts that are just mind-blowing to us and have inspired us and actually inspired Cheryl to make her own scrappy quilt. And she brought that in. And you guys, like, these quilts are going together so fast. And all of us are trying to figure out, how do we do this, right? And how do we get our scraps? That's the quilt. All right. Thank you, Paula. Let's see here. So that is the actual quilt that Cheryl has made because she was inspired by the quilt that Dawn made. And so these are scraps. These are scraps that Cheryl has been collecting from our scraps here in the shop. These are scraps that she's been collecting from previous projects, but she's been making these. And we're like, how can we help our quilters get to here? Because this is a lot of fun. It's bright. And she's going to do a keyboard border on this, and it's going to be amazing. Terry Zachary is asking, can you join anytime and still get all the puzzles? Yes. So Terry, if you sign up today for Under the Sea, we will get you caught up on where everyone else is. So you're back with the group. So quilters, I think everyone has scraps. If you've ever cut a project and stitched it together, you have scraps. And so we always feel like we have to keep these scraps because fabric is expensive. And I always tell myself, I've got scraps. I can use it for another project. It doesn't matter that it's small and tiny. I can use it for another project. And so I have a bin of scraps. It used to be a wire basket. And when I get done with the project, I would toss it in there. So I want to start first by asking you guys, how do you define a scrap? I think we're going to get kind of a rainbow of answers here. But so for me, a scrap is any time it is less than a fat quarter. So if I am folding a fat quarter and I fold it in half and I fold it in half again, if it doesn't make that fold, it is a scrap to me. And that's when I toss it into this wire bin. Now, I'm going to show you guys transparently what happens after the wire bin. So eventually the wire bin gets big enough. And then one of my kids is complaining about being bored. And so they get to sort the scraps in the wire bin. And so this is what they sort it into. And so I've got these tubs. This is real. This is not staged. This is not some sort of, fake prop that we have for the show. So they sort them by color. So clearly this is all the black fabric scraps I have. Then here's all the magentas and the pinks, right? And then, oh yeah, hey, look, there's a nice piece of tulip pink right there. Holy cow. And then this is all the oranges and yellows, right? And so my children sort these for me into beautiful color tubs that I put on a shelf and look amazing and look very good, look very amazing like a rainbow. And they sit there. Because when I'm motivated to do a scrappy project, That's a lot of work, you guys, to look at that tub and to look at all the fabric that's just been balled in there. And then, yay, it's sorted by color. But if I was to do a scrappy project, I'm almost going to come in here and grab fresh scraps to create my project. And so how do we get from this to a quilt? And so I'm seeing comments. I want to make sure. So anything smaller than a fat quarter, Nanny J, that's me as well. Anything bigger than an inch, Jean Thompson. Yes. So I feel like we're kind of narrowing in it. So smaller than a fat quarter, bigger than an inch. Anything between a 2-inch square and a fat quarter goes into the scrap bin. Anything smaller than 5-inch, Brandy. So Brandy has 5 inches and more back in her stash. Anything bigger than an inch. So all of us, right, we have this because we feel like we've paid so much and it has so much value and it has beauty to it that we don't want to throw it away. And so we feel guilty. But then there's also the emotional connection you have to the fabric, because you might have bought this fabric for a special project and you want to use every last scrap because it has meaning and importance to you. However, actually using them is overwhelming. It is a lot going on. So is there a system where we can convert these scraps into something that we will eventually and actually sew? And so I was motivated by Dawn's system, which is actually very similar to a system by Bonnie Hunter. So Bonnie Hunter she's an OG quilter. She's had a blog since the 90s. Bonnie Hunter runs a retreat. She is an amazing, amazing quilting resource. And so she has come up with a system known as the Scrap Users System. I've mentioned this on a couple shows before because it's aspirational for me. This is one of these, like, I see the system, I know it, I get it, and I feel like this is kind of the bridge to get from these containers of chaos into an actual finished quilt. And so the problem is not that we have scraps. It is in how we save them. And so this is Bonnie's position. It's not that we're doing this. This is fine. This is great. It's how are we preparing this to actually be made into something useful? So most of us, do this and it's the someday and it's the someday, but let's convert that to today. And so the idea with the Scrap Users System is that you actually proactively convert them into something that can be readily sewn. And so Bonnie Hunter has come up with commonly used sizes. And so when you have a scrap, you cut it either into a strip or a square. And you're either cutting it into a strip that's 1.5, 2, 2.5, or 3.5 inches wide. And again, you can customize that. There's nothing that says you have to use those. The concept is that you're cutting it into a strip that's a commonly used size for you, or you're cutting it into squares that are 2, 2.5, 3.5, 4.5 inches. So the idea is you're looking at this scrap that you have and how can you optimize it into a shape that makes the most sense. Most quilts are established on a 2-inch grid or a 3-inch grid. And so what that means is that your finished sizes in the finished quilts are mostly 2 inches or 3 inches, which is why a 2.5-inch strip or a 3.5-inch strip make a lot of sense, because those pieces are going to nest. The 3-inch pieces will nest together, 3, 6, 9, 12, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, right? All of those units make sense because they're all meant to work together. So if you're taking your scraps and you're putting them into the grids that you like and that work for you, they're all going to connect together when it comes time to sew them together. And they're this is based upon a lot of quilt blocks that are out there right now. They're mostly 8-inch, 10-inch, 12-inch. And if you're starting with 2 or 3-inch grid, you can make those building blocks come into a block that is a standard dimension and it'll get it done. Now, I get it. There's improv quilters out there. If you are an improv quilter and you're just going to grab something out of here and make something amazing, that is fantastic. Please do not cut those. Use them as you will and be artistic and creative. These are for folks that are more used to traditional piecing with squares and strips and want to be able to convert this into something usable. Now, with all of that said, the other part of the system is that you don't do what I'm doing. You don't sort by color. You sort by size. And so what you would do is you'll have containers that are all of your 1.5-inch squares. your 2.5-inch squares, your 3.5-inch squares. And so you have containers by what your actual size is. And as you create your scrap pieces, you add them to these containers versus sorting by color, because it's a scrappy quilt. It doesn't necessarily have to be rainbow organized. It can be by size. And then once you have enough of the scraps, then that's when you can actually start creating and making your quilt. Or if you have a pattern that calls for a specific size and dimension, you can just go right to that container and you can use the parts. They're already cut for you. If you're not concerned about a specific fabric and a specific coordination, and it can be a scrappy pattern, this is an amazing system for you, because once you start accumulating enough, you got a free Saturday, you might not even need a pattern. Just sew all those squares together, make a grid. You can make a whole bunch of different shapes and different patterns that are grid. You can do what Cheryl and Dawn did, which is take 2 strips, stitch them together, and then rotate them. It's very simple. It goes together really, really quickly because everything's already cut, and you're not caring about color. So you're just grabbing whatever's on top, putting it together, grabbing whatever's on top, putting it together, grabbing what's on top and putting it together. And off you can sew, and you can just enjoy the sewing process with your machine rather than the, oh my gosh, is the blue next to the purple? Is it next to the green? Is the yellow in the right place? That's not the intention with all this. The intention is to take those scraps that have already served their primary purpose, right? You bought this fabric for a primary purpose and you have some leftovers and you don't want to throw it away. So all you're doing is giving it a second life by putting it into a project with other memory fabrics, right? So the project you're creating is almost an I Spy for you, because you can say, I remember this fabric. This was from the quilt for my brother's wedding. This was from the quilt that, my nephew, I made for my nephew. This is the graduation gift. You see those prints, and those are all the memories they hold for you, but you're giving them more of a life by putting them into this project versus jammed up and wadded up in these boxes. A crazy quilt pattern. Yes, Jean Thompson, all of that works. Let's see here. And if you have anything that's too small, put it in the trash, put it in the donation bin. And I know when I say that, it hurts because I hate throwing away fabric. But if it's tiny and you have optimized it and you have gotten all that you can out of it, let it go. Don't try and hold on to it. It is better off being donated. I'll actually bring mine in here to the shop. We have a whole donation bag of things that are too small that people use to stuff dog beds with, or that people use to line bunny cages. All of those things can be used with those pieces that are too small to be stitched together, those pieces that are less than an inch, or those pieces that have the crazy, you fussy cut something out and there's a little bit left over. Let's see here. Right. So Terry says she has 2 scrap quilts that she adds onto regularly. And so that is a fantastic idea. Is if you're in between projects and you need kind of a palette cleanser, I'll call it, you've got big project over here, you've got big project over here, and you want just something fun to do in the middle, just go to your scrap bin and just add more squares, add more rows, add more strips. It's a fantastic way to build onto that quilt over time. Let's see here. Collage quilting, Brandy, that is a fantastic use. I like to fussy cut, and I am consistently left with oddly shaped parts and pieces that don't cleanly go into a strip or a square. I'll use those for foundation paper piecing as well. But I do heed my advice that sometimes a piece is too small. It has served its primary purpose, and it is time for it to get a new home. Jean says she uses those for stuffing small dolls. That's absolutely right. I think it's controversial, but the adage used to be that you could take your small pieces and use them for bird stuffing. I think scientists have found that, or someone has told me that you shouldn't do that anymore. I think there's other ways in which you can use those really tiny pieces that are almost too small to sew together. Yeah, Made by Misty says she never throws out tiny pieces because dogs and cats need a bed. Yes, but I would put those in a separate place from your usable scraps, right? There's the scraps that you intend to use, and there's the scraps that have a better home than a quilting end. And so I think if you think about what is the intended purpose of this fabric, and I know for me, these fabrics have been used for their primary purpose. I made whatever project I needed from them. Now I'm just giving them a second life. Their third life can be something else. Absolutely fine and fair. Okay, now, how do you get here, right? How do you get to these parts and pieces? And so I know for me, I have these 12 tubs. That's super daunting. That's like a lifetime achievement project to go back and try and do all 12 of these tubs into squares and into rectangles and into strips. And so Sorry, I have like the scraps here are giving me a little sore throat. Okay. But so I have all this. And so it's daunting to think I need to stop and do it all now. And so I think one of the commitments we can make to each other as quilters is that perhaps going from here forward, when you finish a project, you're going to take your scraps from that project and you're going to start the system. You're going to cut them down into a shape that's useful for you. It might not be all of these shapes. Maybe you're just going to make a commitment that when I finish a project, I'm going to cut the smaller pieces into 2.5-inch squares and I'm going to move the rest to a donation pile. Or, hey, I really love 2.5-inch strips. I like jelly rolls. Why don't I just cut everything into a usable 2.5-inch strip and move it out? Those are the types of things you can make that commitment starting to from here forward. And then when you have a gap, you can maybe take a tub and do half of a tub and start adding to this system versus trying to retroactively go back and start it from what you already have. That is a daunting project for many of us. And that's a project that is not set to be done and will probably end up destroying the beauty of the system that you're trying to create. So our suggestion is actually just starting from here forward. As you look at scraps that you have on projects that you're currently working on, what can you do with them? And so let's say here, right? So you can take all these parts and pieces and sew them together. I've actually taken a whole bunch of parts and scraps. I went to our retreat fabrics that we're currently die cutting and I grabbed about a handful of snippets. And so the snippets are the pieces that are left over after we die cut. We also have, we have snippets, we have stitches. So these are the things that we kind of have left over after we die cut, strip packs as well. And I cut them this morning. And so what I wanted to show you is kind of using this thought process. I have these scraps that are left over. What can I do with them? And so I have these, and I know these are common shapes that many of us have here. I'm going to show you guys, right? So I have these kind of strips here. And I love them because it's a lot of beautiful prints. It's a lot of kaif. It has some good thickness to it. And I would probably put these in a nice, pretty blue tub, right? This is where these would go if they were in my house. However, with using this mentality, I cut them into 2.5-inch strips. And now I have a whole stack of 2.5-inch strips that are ready to be used for a project. I can take these and I can cut them to whatever length I want. And this brings me joy because this is a ready to sew kind of unit, as opposed to this, which I look at, it brings me joy because of the fabric, but it does not bring me joy because I've got all this stuff I've got to cut off of it. And then I got to think about what to do with it, as opposed to this, which is a Kickstarter for a project, right? This I can sew together. I can make strips. I can make log cabins. I can do so much with this unit. I also wanted to show you like these little guys here, right? And so oftentimes when we're cutting, we have these pieces that are close to the selvage, right? And so you have just a little bit that's left and you're like, I want to keep it, but I don't know if I should. And I don't want to throw it away because I love fabric and these are pretty prints. And so what I did with these, using the same mentality, is I converted them into 1.5-inch strips. And so look, like this is fun. Like this is the beginning of a project. I can grab this 1.5-inch strip and I can start sewing with it, versus feeling like I need to do a lot of work with this guy. And so this is a jump start to a project. Now, what do you do with the odd shapes, right? So we talked about I fussy cut a lot. And so I pulled a stack of these guys out. You can see there's a really healthy stack here. These have all still have a lot of usable fabric on them, but it's hard to think about like, am I going to cut a triangle out of this? How am I going to make this into something useful? But I love these fabrics and these prints. From this stack, from this shape here, I was able to make these guys and these guys. And so look, I was able to make a super healthy stack of 1.5 by 2.5-inch strips and 1.5-inch squares. And so I don't have to do this very often. And then pretty soon I'm going to have a whole bunch of these, enough to make a quilt and enough to make a quilt. And these guys will just stay in a tub and then we'll add to it and add to it and add to it. And before you know it, we're going to have a beautiful quilt made with memories of these fabrics. Hold on. These scraps are making me all itchy. All right, let's see here. Let's take a look at the comments. Let's see here. Postage stamp quilts. So Made by Misty is saying postage stamp quilts are another great idea, right? You've got these teeny tiny little pieces. These are fantastic for postage stamp quilts. And see here, Diane is saying her scraps are used as leader ender. Her postage stamp quilt is almost a twin size. Diane, that is that is a lot of that's a lot of fabric there. You can also make a rug with your 2.5-inch strips. That is absolutely true. You can sew them end to end to end, and before you know it, you're gonna have a long piece. You can use them for binding as well. Now these guys here, right? This is another chunk of piece that is just a stack of scraps. And so I can easily, you know, put this into a little bucket that's blue, but instead what I did, I converted them to 2.5-inch squares. This is usable. This is something I can look at and I can actually make something with, as opposed to this guy, which I will admire forever in the bottom of my tub, right? And so I think one of the parts that I would look forward to in this project is how do you optimize? Yeah, it's a half of a hexagon. This is a fun shape, but because they're all different and they're all a little irregular, it's not like, this is not a shape that I would find very usable to pick up to make a quilt. Now, with this, I think one of the fun parts and one of the challenging parts for me would be, how do I optimize this surface area of this print and make it into a shape that I want to put in a box and I want to store, right? So for this guy, I made it a 2.5-inch square. You could easily cut this in strips and have strips as well. There are a lot of options that can be done, but it's up to you. And I think it starts with the foundation of what are the shapes that you are most motivated by that would make you the most happy. Now, the goal for this is not perfection, it's progress, right? And I feel like many of us have so many scraps, it's overwhelming, but it's not perfection, it's just progress. And so take some, see what you can do, and see if you can start building a system. And so I'm going to ask a question that I'm not sure many people have asked, but I'm going to ask it anyways, because one of you might have it. And that's, what if you don't have any scraps? Beginning quilters don't have many scraps. If all you've ever done is a Cotton Cuts pre-cut program, you're not going to have scraps, because we don't send you more than you need. We send you exactly what you need. And so that's where our snippets and our strip packs come into play. You can also ask friends if they have scraps left over. Scraps are a natural byproduct of the process. That's just the way it works. And so it's what you do with them that really, and I mean, if you're one of those people that you finish a project and you just give all your scraps away, more power to you. That is a fantastic use for them as well. You don't have to have an organized system if it's not working for you. All right. And so one of the things that we really like about it is that these quilts are not limited by just what's available in the store or the latest and greatest collection or everything having to blend together. I did all CAFE. That was easy to grab those snippets, but I could easily mix this with everything else. And it is not limited by just being a single collection. It's really a history of what you have sewn together to generate the scraps. And it's quilting with heart and the history of everything that you made before it. So what I'm going to challenge you guys to do over the next week, and I would love to see your pictures posted in the Cotton Cuts Fabric Facebook group, is take some scraps that you have or a project that you're almost done with and see what you come up with. See how you can define this for yourself. What is your most common shape that you would like to use? Is it a 2-inch grid? Is it a 3-inch grid? Are you making squares? Are you making strips? What is your go-to? And how are you going to set this up? I want to kind of see what you guys are doing, because this is me right now. And I don't know how to even start beginning to chip away. So I will take my next project and I'm going to commit to start cutting these shapes and start building these units and breaking my habit of sorting by color. Let's see here. Jana's saying she was at No Scraps 3 years ago. Congratulations, Jana. Some shops actually sell scrap packs at heavy discounts if you really desire to show random stuff. Yes, as do we. All right. And if you are inspired by this, start simple. Simple patterns often work best. 4 patches, 9 patches, leader ender projects, rail fence blocks, log cabins. These all are fantastically fun to do with scrappy fabrics. And all you have to do is, if you're vibing with it, then just grab a neutral and cut a similar shape. And just like Cheryl and Dawn did, you'll have a beautiful quilt in no time. All right. That's it for us, guys. I cannot wait to see what you guys are able to create with this new system. I know we've talked about it, and I'm glad we were able to cover it and hopefully inspire you to try something new or think about your scraps a little differently. I think probably we might need to do a scrap challenge here in the next couple of months. I bet Paula is nodding her head. So I'm wondering if we'll probably see if we can work that in and give you guys some fantastic prizes. All right. So thanks so much for hanging with us to the end of the show. It's time for us to do our giveaway now. As we do every week, we're giving away a $25 gift card to the Cotton Cuts shop. And so to enter to win that, find this video on YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram and answer this question. What is your favorite scrap size to save and why? Is it 2.5 strips? Is it anything less than a fat quarter? Is it tiny squares? Tell us in the comments what scrap size speaks to you and why. Cindy loves to sew. We're probably going to come up with a blog post for this, but we can also link to the Bonnie Hunter scrap system as well. All right, so answer that question. What's your favorite scrap size to save and why? And we'll pick one lucky winner to get a $25 gift card to the shop. I think that's it for us this week, guys. I hope you guys go out and enjoy the early fall weather that we are seeing here. And hope you guys get lots of sewing in. I hope to see you guys on Saturday at the Saturday Sew Social. And we will see you guys next week. That's all for us. Have a great week, and we will see you soon. Bye now. And cut. Thank you so much for watching our video. We have so much fun making these, and we hope that you were both delighted and inspired by what you just watched. This video was sponsored by Cotton Cuts. Cotton Cuts is your one stop for all the best fabric and thread memberships. Love fabric? We've got you covered. Love thread? We've got you covered. We get that no two quilters are cut from the same cloth, which is why our memberships are as unique as you. We also have the largest block of the month in the world. Over 4,000 detectives solve our puzzle mystery quilts every year, and you can join them. Simply go to cottoncuts.com to learn more about all the awesome and fun things that we're doing. And don't forget to hit like and subscribe to make sure you get all of our new fresh content every time it comes out. Thank you so much. Happy sewing enthusiasts, and we will see you soon. Bye now.